Okay, welcome to this biology discussion. The question of the day is about photosynthesis. It reads, the equation below represents photosynthesis. What are the substances W, X, Y, and Z? The answer is D. W is water, X is carbon dioxide, Y is glucose, Z is oxygen. Allow me to explain. First of all, the question is, we are given an equation here. We are given a word equation to complete. So this right here is a word equation. We are given a word equation for photosynthesis. So because this thing is an equation, the stuff on the left hand side here is going to be called reactants. And the stuff on the right hand side here is going to be called products. So from the get-go, we should be knowing that the stuff on the left hand side here is going to be called reactants. The stuff on the right hand side here is going to be called the products. Okay, so as usual, we are going to be breaking down all the keywords in here. So this question is largely concerned with photosynthesis, and so we are going to be breaking down that word, photosynthesis. The word photosynthesis here, photo means light, synthesis means to make. Photo, think photography, it uses light. So photo means light, synthesis means to make. And so putting it all together now, photosynthesis is the process whereby green plants make carbohydrates, in brackets glucose, in the presence of light. Our plants are green because they have a green pigment called chlorophyll. So photo means light, synthesis means to make. Photosynthesis is the process whereby green plants make carbohydrates in the presence of light. Now let's focus on light here. What is the purpose of light during photosynthesis? What exactly is light doing during this process of photosynthesis? Well, light is used to break down carbon dioxide and water to form glucose and oxygen. And as I mentioned already, the stuff on the left hand side is the reactants. So the stuff that we come with into the reaction, the raw materials that we start with, these are our reactants. So light is going to be used to break down carbon dioxide and water and then combine them again to form glucose and oxygen. And these are going to be our products. Well, technically glucose here is our product, while oxygen here is our byproduct. It's an unintended product. It just comes up incidentally. We weren't really planning to get oxygen out of this. We were only looking for glucose. Plants were only trying to make their own food, but oxygen came up incidentally. So oxygen is a byproduct. So all in all, photo means light, synthesis means to make. Plants make their own food using light. And the food here is called carbohydrates. Another name for carbohydrates here is sugar. So plants make their own food, in brackets glucose here, in the presence of light. Light is used to break down carbon dioxide and water to form glucose and oxygen. Glucose is the main product. Oxygen is a byproduct. Carbon dioxide and water are reactants. So we're going to zoom into carbon dioxide and water here. Well, we're going to zoom into carbon dioxide and oxygen here, since these two are gases. And then we're also going to talk about water. We're also going to talk about glucose. Okay, so all in all, the main energy changes happening during photosynthesis are, we are going from light energy to chemical energy. The process uses light energy and it produces carbohydrates, glucose, which have chemical energy. Food has chemical energy in it. So the main energy changes here happening are light energy going to chemical energy. Remember, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only change form. So we are seeing one form of energy here being converted into the other. We are going from light energy to chemical energy. So as promised, now we are going to be talking about the gases. Carbon dioxide diffuses into the leaf through the stomata. So carbon dioxide is going to be diffusing into the leaf through the stomata. So how do we get carbon dioxide? Since carbon dioxide is a reactant. Since carbon dioxide is needed for photosynthesis, how are we going to get that carbon dioxide? It is going to diffuse into the leaf through the stomata, while oxygen diffuses out of the leaf. I shouldn't have written into the leaf here. Oxygen diffuses out of the leaf through the stomata. So carbon dioxide goes in through photosynthesis, oxygen goes out. Carbon dioxide diffuses into the leaf through the stomata, oxygen diffuses out of the leaf through the stomata. So all in all, because I'm talking about these two gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen here, I'm talking about this exchange of gases. This is gaseous exchange. This thing here is called gaseous exchange. Once more, we are talking about photosynthesis. This is its word equation. On the left you have reactants, on the right you have the products. This thing here is a byproduct. This is the main product, glucose here. There are gases involved, namely carbon dioxide and oxygen. I am now talking about those gases and saying carbon dioxide diffuses into the leaf through the stomata. Oxygen diffuses out of the leaf after photosynthesis has taken place through the stomata. This whole thing is called gaseous exchange. Now, gaseous exchange. The gut cells control the opening and the closing of the stomata. Why? The gut cells are crescent-shaped. They can change shape and they exist in pairs. So, harabo loko topic in cell specialization, talking about a particular set of cells here, the gut cells. They control the opening and the closing of the stomata. The stomata are the opening or the pores on the leaf, so to speak. So the gut cells here, they control the opening and the closing of the stomata. The gut cells are crescent shaped. They can change shape and they exist in pairs. In order to have an opening in between them, they have to exist in pairs. So ribuaga, a specialized cell, a cell that has a specific function in the plant. We are talking about how it's suited for its particular function. It is crescent shaped, and these cells, they can change shape on top of that, and they exist in pairs. They come in twos. Okay. Photosynthesis, we've just been talking about gaseous exchange. Let's talk about water. Since water is a raw material in this thing, since water is a reactant in this thing, where do the plants get water? Well, water is absorbed through the process of osmosis by the root hair cells in the soil. The root hair cells. So water is absorbed through the process of osmosis by the root hair cells in the soil. It is transported by the xylem tissue or the xylem vessel to the leaf by the process of transpiration stream. Photosynthesis takes place in the leaf. So water here is absorbed through the process of osmosis by the root hair cells in the soil. It is transported by the xylem tissue to the leaf where photosynthesis takes place by the process of transpiration stream. So the takeaway here is that the movement of water in the xylem tissue, in the xylem vessel, is called transpiration stream. The continuous movement of water. Transpiration stream is therefore the continuous flow, the continuous movement of water in the xylem tissue in the plant. There's the transpiration stream. The word stream here implies, continuous movement, flowing. So this is the continuous movement of water in the xylem tissue, transpiration stream. Let's then talk about glucose, the main product, the food that is being manufactured, made by the plant here. Glucose will move from the leaves to other parts of the plants, the sink, through the process of translocation. So glucose is being made in the leaves. It has to go to other parts of the plants. So the leaves then are called the source where glucose is being made. So the other parts of the plants that receive the newly made glucose are called the sink. So glucose will move from the leaves, they attempt the source here, to other parts of the plants, the sink, through the process of translocation. Let's also talk about that glucose. Glucose can then take two forms. Once glucose is transported, it can take two forms depending on the intended use. Glucose can many small individual units of glucose can be added together to form large molecules here of sugar, large carbohydrate molecules. So glucose molecules can combine themselves to form starch. And what is starch really? It's a storage form of glucose, and it is stored in the roots and the stem. Glucose can also take this form here, cellulose. Cellulose is a structural form of glucose. So cellulose is used to make cell wall. It's in the name, cellulose. Cellulose used to make cell wall. So let's talk about starch. Rona, when we have excess amounts of glucose, we store that glucose as glycogen. The liver, topic at the liver. So when we have excess starch, we store that glucose. When we have excess glucose, we store that excess glucose as glycogen in the liver. When the plants have excess glucose, they store it as starch in the roots and in the stems. If plants make their own food through the process of photosynthesis, and photosynthesis takes place in the leaves, and some plants shed their leaves during winter, plants then must have a storage of glucose somewhere. So plants make their own food. We call that food glucose. What is going on here? We call that food glucose, and that glucose is then combined together to form starch to be stored in the roots and the stem. Why? Because plants are going to lose their leaves in the winter. They are therefore not going to be able to photosynthesize. We need glucose to come from somewhere, so that glucose is going to be the stored starch. Plants need cell walls. The cell wall needs to be strong in order to protect the inner contents of the cell. So plants need cellulose to make cell wall. Cellulose is a structural form of glucose used to make cell wall. Let's talk about oxygen, the byproduct in here. Oxygen will be used by the plants and animals during respiration. So we give the plants carbon dioxide when we breathe out. The plants get that carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide goes into the leaf. The plants carry out photosynthesis. The plants give us oxygen, which we then use for respiration. What is respiration? The breakdown of carbohydrates to release energy. We eat food, we have to release energy. That energy is released through the process of respiration. Respiration is one of the 7 characteristics of living things, alongside movement, reproduction, sensitivity, growth, excretion, and nutrition. So as a recap here, let's start at the beginning. Where to begin? This question is about photosynthesis. We are given a word equation. On the left we have reactants, on the right we have products, a main product and a byproduct. Water is a reactant. Water is absorbed by the root hair cells in the soil. Water is transported in the xylem vessels through the transpiration stream. As carbon dioxide diffuses into the leaf, it goes in through the stomata. The stomata are the opening or the pores in the leaf. The closing and the opening of the stomata is controlled by the gut cells. The gut cells are crescent shaped. They exist in pairs and they can change their shape. Why is glucose? Glucose is the carbohydrate or the sugar that is produced during photosynthesis. Glucose can turn into starch for storage. Glucose can turn into cellulose, the structural form of glucose. Oxygen is used for respiration, aerobic respiration to be specific, to release energy from food. That's all.